Get 5 coffins ready.
Hey everyone, welcome to my guide for Zeus. If you play Arena, Assault, or Joust, you've heard of Zeus, but if you play Conquest, you might think, who? You know, if he wasn't Zeus. Zeus is an extremely risky mid-lane character, dealing absolutely absurd levels of AoE damage with some unmissable tracking damage on top. But the guy is exceptionally easy to kill, and without his ultimate, any enemy who knows what Zeus is capable of is not getting hit by any abilities in his core kit, at least unless Zeus's teammates are there to set up for him. Build-wise, Zeus goes all in with the damage, grabbing some cooldown reduction along the way to ensure that crazy ultimate is up every time Zeus wants to fight. Defense is fine, I guess, but Zeus is a rare example of a god where it's like, if you're playing Zeus, just go all in with the damage. If you're feeling the need to build defense, you should have picked a different character entirely. Relics-wise, come on, it's just beads and ages. Although Zeus is a good example of a god where you want to go shell against gods like Kabrakan, Ymir, or Yamoja, who use walls to box in their enemies, so with the upgrade Phantom Shell, you're able to get out of them. Shard-wise, generally Claw Shard is the way to go thanks to his burst, but Horn Shard isn't bad so you can get your self-peel abilities off of cooldown more often. And in that same vein, go Bountiful Bow for a great way to get your combo starter off of cooldown more often. Let's hop into Zeus by talking about his very simple passive. For every charge an enemy has on them, Zeus will deal bonus damage with his basic attack, and Zeus can apply these charges with his basic attacks and can stack the charges up to 3 times for a total of 90% bonus damage. So what does that mean? Is Zeus secretly an ADC? Well, no. You definitely still want to go just full damage on Zeus, even if attack speed Zeus is fun thanks to this passive. It's more so just something you want to keep in mind while you're all-inning targets. Of course, you always want to pump out basic attack damage no matter what god you are, but you want to be even more vigilant about this while playing Zeus, especially once you really start getting your build going. You can seriously pump out some of the hardest hitting basic attacks in the game with a fully stacked passive on someone. You can get stacks much more easily though if you use your first ability first, and then go in with your basic attacks. Zeus fires a projectile which will stop on the first enemy or wall hit. When this ability hits an enemy, it will deal damage and slow them, and then it will arc to the closest nearby enemy. This ability will jump 4 times total, and luckily for Zeus, can bounce back and forth between targets, and as you can guess, each hit of this ability applies a passive stack to the damaged enemy. As I'm sure you can guess, you don't really use this ability alone, it combos with his other abilities, but let's talk about it individually. For one, it makes Zeus one of the best mid laners to clear jungle camps with. He of course deals a lot of damage to them with the arcing damage and the bonus damage from his passive on his basic attacks, but it also means that it's basically impossible to invade a Zeus or otherwise contest him while he's doing buffs. So if you think an enemy is going for an invade, or you're doing a more contentious jungle camp such as mid camps, you want to hold on to this ability and it basically guarantees nobody's going to try and steal the camp away from you, since if they try, they're getting an arc straight to the face. Unfortunately for Zeus, however, this slow is his only form of CC, at all. So when it comes to self-peel, it really is in your best interest just to turn around and slow enemies with this ability. That does bring up this ability's wind-up time though, and it's another one of those abilities where you may want to consider quick casting so that you can keep aiming the ability while the targeter is visible until it actually fires. And generally, one of the most important things to do on Zeus is get a feel for walking forward while casting this ability, to minimize the amount of time you spend out of position casting this ability. Luckily, Zeus can use his second ability to assist him in staying in a safe position while still being able to be effective with this ability. Zeus deploys an AoE on the ground, and while this AoE is on the ground, Zeus gains movement speed and attack speed. The center of the AoE, Zeus's shield, can be interacted with via basic attacks and Zeus's first ability. When basic attacked, the shield will deal damage in the entire area, and will apply a passive stack to any enemy hit by the shield. However, they will not take the bonus damage from having stacks on them like if you were to straight up basic attack someone. And as you probably already guessed, when hit with the first ability, they will arc off the shield as if it were arcing off an enemy. But don't forget that you're giving up the potential passive stack on an enemy if you're in a situation where you could just one someone raw. And that's a common theme with this ability. This is Zeus's main wave clear, where you slap it in the middle of the wave and basic attack the wave down with the AoE damage, made easier with the attack speed and safer with the movement speed. And it's also Zeus's go-to combo play with his first ability, allowing him to use his first ability without getting too far out of position. So in turn, you may find yourself relying on it a bit too much. The ability is absolutely necessary to 1v1 people with no enemies to arc to, simply 2-1 and basic attack them. But remember that your basic attacks deal far more damage when you hit them straight up, so as a common theme, you always do want to use this ability, but that doesn't mean you directly play through it every single time. Remember, you still get that attack speed and movement speed if it's just on the ground. You don't need to hit it or anything to get those bonuses. In most situations, yes, you 2-1 at maximum range to keep yourself safe, but don't forget in situations where you can hit your 1 raw, you want to 2, but then use your 1 on the enemy god and not the shield first, to give them as many arcs as possible and get that extra passive stack on them from hitting them with the initial part of the ability. And of course, while it's easier just to basic attack the shield for some basic attack damage, you always want to hit gods with your actual basic attacks whenever you can. Don't forget too that this ability is on the ground for a long time, and don't worry, if you won the shield as it's about to return to you, it will actually still bounce your one in its entirety even if the shield disappears, so be sure to punish enemies who are too gung-ho about jumping on you when this ability is over. But yeah, on that note, when this ability is on cooldown, Zeus is a bit of a sitting duck. He really has nothing to stop enemies from just exploding him. And as you can guess, his 2-1 is actually his best form of self-peel as well. So that means after you clear the wave with your shield and it returns to you, yeah, you're an easy kill. Or just in general, if you 2 the wave and walk up to basic attack your shield, sure you have that extra movement speed, but you're still incurring the basic attack movement speed penalty the whole time. So you need to be ready at any time just to drop what you're doing and run away if you get jumped on for trying to be just doing your job and clearing the wave. Poor Zeus, huh? Luckily though, even if you only get 1 or 2 basic attacks through the shield onto the wave, you can finish off the wave with your 3rd ability. Zeus detonates any active passive stacks on enemies. This ability cannot be dodged or otherwise cleansed, but it can be immune with abilities that make them immune to damage, for instance Surge's ultimate, or more commonly usage of the relic Aegis. And naturally, Zeus does more damage based on how many passive stacks were applied to the target, which makes the 2-1 combo I mentioned earlier, where you won the enemy instead of your shield, much more effective. So of course the game here is, try to get 3 stacks on someone, and then boom, explode them. If I had one piece of advice about this very complex ability, is that you do indeed usually want to hold on to this ability until you know you can't apply any more passive charges to your intended target. And to be clear, you will be putting a bunch of single charges on potentially good targets, or a bunch of charges on tanks along the way, but you really only want to detonate those charges if you know the fight is over, or if you know your team will be fighting before your detonate is up again. If you got a splash of charges out there and your team backs up, detonate, but if you have charges out there and it looks like your team might be going for round 2, hold on to your detonate. It's best to not poke with the detonate than to not have the detonate at all when your team full on engages. Because also, of course, once you detonate the charges with this ability, you lose all the charges, as in lose a ton of potential basic attack damage. The other benefit is obvious too. It doesn't matter what your target tries to do, even if they yawn assault into Narnia, you can always just detonate on them wherever they are. And sure, Aegis, Shell, Geb shields, things like that are unavoidable and will be used to negate or immune the damage on the detonate. But just remember that if they're holding onto those resources while fighting you in fear of the detonate, it means you have free reign to deal damage to them until you detonate, so use that time as best you can. This all becomes a lot easier when you factor in Zeus's ultimate. Zeus creates a massive AoE, and any enemies inside this AoE will be damaged every second, and also will have a charge applied to them every time they're hit, and this area lasts for a whopping 5 seconds. Seems pretty brain dead, and that's because it is, but I can't overstate how important this ability is. You see, Zeus has this weird monkey's paw with how his core kit works, because as you may have noticed, the more people you affect with your kit, the less damage you actually do. Zeus can really only burst groups of 2 or individual enemies down with his 1-2-3 combo. Otherwise, he needs to use his ultimate to get multiple passive charges on important targets. So Zeus is a mage who relies on his ultimate, huge shocker there, but he, like his brothers Poseidon and Hades, is defined by how well he times his ultimate during a fight. Because if you just paste it down on enemies randomly, they're gone without a second thought via their movement abilities, and you're lucky to even get a single passive stack on them since there is a short windup to this ultimate. This is partly what makes Zeus amazing into gods with no movement abilities. Just slap his ultimate on top of them and then slow them with your 2-1 while they're in there, or you could go vice versa, slowing them first. And it is very, very hard to survive this combo if you don't have a dash or leap to get away from Zeus. So if you as a Zeus see a good opportunity to zap an individual player with no movement ability with your first ability, you should try and follow it up with this ultimate. And remember of course, you can chain your 1 off of anything, jungle camps, minions, doesn't matter, anything to get that slow going. Or even if they do have a movement ability, you should look to slow them and start poking them with your basic attacks. Then, once they dash or leap away, put this ultimate on top of wherever they dash or leapt to. And remember, you can put this ability over walls, so even if someone at low health leaps over a wall, this ultimate plus your detonate almost guarantees a kill. That's all good and fun, but how are you supposed to activate this ability at the optimal time in teamfights without, dying? Well, this is where Zeus gets tricky, because you really do need to walk up and try to get this ability out when your tanks get a good engage on the enemy backline. The best you can do is keep your finger on your beads and Aegis buttons, because you will need to walk up and ult, and you will get CC'd or otherwise damaged for doing it. But luckily, once you put this ultimate where it needs to be, it does the heavy lifting for you, and while the full combo is obviously ultimate, 2, 1, 3, this ultimate alone does such absurd damage that if you find yourself in a bad spot after ulting, you can really just let the ultimate get some damage out and then detonate, and you've probably done just as much if not more damage than most mages would have. This is still a heavily damaging ultimate too though, so don't forget about using it on things like Gold Fury and Fire Giant to zone off enemies who are trying to steal the objective from you, or put this ultimate onto the objective itself so that you not only get a lot of damage onto it, but also set up some passive charges so that you can confirm the objective with your detonate. On that note, don't forget about this ability as self-peel as well. 2-1 is obviously a great combo for self-peel, but if you have access to this ultimate and are being dove by an enemy who can easily kill you, slap this ultimate on top of yourself as well to make yourself far more dangerous to try and dive. And this is why you really don't want to go defense on Zeus, instead of opting for massive amounts of damage in your builds. Because frankly, no amount of defense is going to make Zeus hard to kill, especially in a teamfight. So what you can do instead is pump out so much damage that nobody can kill you before you kill them. Let's show you what I mean with some combos. At long range, 2, 1 your shield, walk up to basic attack if you can, and then detonate. At closer range, 2 and 1 the enemy god, basic attack them as much as you can at a safe range, and then detonate. In teamfights, ultimate, 2, 1 the shield if it's safe, walking up to basic attack if you can, and then 3. At long range, 2, 1 your shield, basic them but hold on to your detonate. And then if they use a movement ability or try to jump on you, ult them in response. And then hold on to your detonate as long as you can, basic attacking if possible to keep the charges on them. For ability level, get your 2 at level 1, and remember to basic attack the shield to kill the small jungle monsters, but swap to basic attacking the big minions once they're the only ones left. Then, you're 1 at level 2. This gives you the option for either defense or offense depending on how the 2v2 matchup is. Then, you're 3 at level 3. From there, max your 3, your 1, then your 2, leveling the ultimate whenever you can. Zeus is an iconic character for obvious reasons. One of the original characters in SMITE, a very simple and highly damaging combo, the face of Greek mythology, and is voiced by frickin' Vegeta. There's a lot of reasons to be interested. But if you jumped into Zeus blind, chances are you got bounced around like a beach ball by tanks and assassins alike. Because if you look up easy target in a dictionary, which isn't a word, but trust me on this, you'll see Zeus as the definition. Absolutely no hard CC to self-peel with, no way to heal himself like Alposh or Anubis can, no slow immunities like a Ra or Kukulkan, just lots and lots of damage, which again, he can't really put enough of out unless he has his ultimate. But despite all these issues, Zeus isn't bad, he's just difficult. Yep, you heard me, Zeus is hard. Not mechanically, obviously. I, and I'm sure everyone watching, could do Zeus's combos blindfolded, but it's really difficult to position him with Zeus and remain both safe and effective. But sometimes you just won't be able to be safe, and you need to accept that fact so you can get in there and be effective. In short, Zeus is a lot like some dive-based assassins, whose intent is to almost guaranteed kill one player in the enemy team, but almost certainly die themselves afterwards for it. Zeus is the same way. You deal 3.3 gazillion estimated damage, but you just can't stay safe and apply that damage unless you're ahead or have a team based around protecting you. So you need to just accept the fact that you're going to die a lot in this character, and that's okay, because his raw damage is more than worth it. Just don't pick Zeus into characters with too many fast abilities that can avoid his chain lightning and consecutive hits of his ultimate, and you're going to be doing absurd levels of damage every single match, more than enough to warrant picking Zeus. Or you could just pick Raijin, but he's not as cool as Zeus, so there's that. That's all I have on Zeus for now. Thanks for watching.